Good day, everybody. In today's content, we focus on XRP and vertical accumulation. Do stay tuned. Nothing that I say is financial advice. Let's dive into the content. So we're looking at XRP here on the weekly time frame. I have the vertical accumulation resistance and the vertical accumulation support. Excuse my terrible spelling. I also have the stock RSI here on the weekly time frame, which is still in oversold territory. So you can see that levels below 20 highlight oversold, very similarly to where we was sort of back in this phase in April, which marked this local bottom here on the 7th of April at roughly $1.91. So we have the white lines as vertical accumulation, and we also have these green lines here as horizontal resistance and horizontal support. So the ultimate horizontal support level sits roughly at $1.92, and the resistance sits roughly at sort of $3.40. Now, there's a lot of chop going on inside this accumulation phase, which I do believe will potentially lead to a major breakout. Now, XRP does have this level of resistance, this red block here, roughly at $2.70, which was the May high from 2025. We've also had points of contact from back in December of 2024 and also sort of in February and March of 2025. Now, XRP did form a bearish structure once it placed this new all-time high, as we had these lower highs in this triangle formation, which was called an ascending triangle. So we placed lower highs over time, got really compressed into a corner, and then we lost this level of support at roughly $2.70 that we was holding, and then we entered into this massive wick. Now, since then, you can see that the candle closes have initially held on this vertical accumulation support. And what we've actually done is what it looks like is XRP is trying to build some sort of double bottom here, or is getting really sort of compressed into this corner. And we've gone from a descending triangle, which is a local top pattern in this structure. And right now, XRP has the potential to form an ascending triangle. Now, the ascending triangle is when you have a horizontal level of resistance and you have this ascending level of support. And you can sort of squeeze and get really compressed in this triangle before initially looking for a breakout to the upside. So what we need to see in the short term is simple. We need to see XRP sort of break through $2.70. And if we can get the breakthrough and actually come back down to retest this previous red zone of resistance and turn it into support, this would be a good sign to look for continuation to push up to horizontal resistance, this green zone, roughly at $3.40, and of course pushing to that all-time high. So at this moment in time, there isn't any sort of confirmational break to the upside. I think that XRP is trying to form a base foundation within this vicinity. And it's pretty simple. If we can hold the vertical accumulation and get really tight and compressed, then eventually I think a break to the upside will come. And we can simply measure the breakout of this potential ascending triangle by going from resistance back down to support. And once XRP does break out of it, you can see it does give it the push towards sort of $3.20. So that could be a short-term target if we see XRP take out $2.70. Failing that, if XRP can't take out $2.70, one, I expect compression within this resistance and support range between our accumulation support and this $2.70 resistance. And this could linger around for a few more weeks, potentially looking at the macro perspective. Ultimately, the most bearish case scenario here, if the low isn't in and we do sort of run up into $2.70 and we lose the vertical accumulation support and hit our heads on it as resistance, then this could give way to potentially retracing back down to horizontal support, which sits at $1.90. Now, at the moment, I don't see that play. What I actually see is a 5-wave breakdown where XRP has had this wave 1 back to support, a wave 2, a wave 3, a wave 4, and this is potentially a flat wave 5. In fact, if we go from the candle closes, this is a very, very shallow wave 5. Now, if we go back to a post of mine from X, and this was from sort of October the 26th, I said that XRP is looking to run into $2.70 resistance before coming back down to vertical accumulation support. And if we do go back to this this move here, you can see that's exactly what happened. We ran into $2.70 roughly on the 20th of October, and then we had a couple of weeks drawing us back down to this vertical accumulation support. So if this is to be a 5th wave, it is very shallow, but there is some structure here. And the breakdown target of this descending triangle, I do believe has also been met. Okay, so if we go back down and we sort of break down resistance and break down through support, our technical target was roughly towards $2.13. Of course, we got this massive wick from the liquidation event, but the buyers stepped in, pushed it up to 270, and now we've come back down and are holding this vertical accumulation support. So it's pretty simple. We had a descending triangle, broke down in the structure, had a massive liquidation event wick. The buyers have stepped back in. We've ran into $2.70 resistance. And for the last couple of weeks, we pulled back down to vertical accumulation support. Roughly at around $2.35 is where XRP placed this local low. And as of this week is actually starting to see that relief. So what we need to see here is a few things. Okay, we need to see the $2.70 resistance broken, and we need to see the stock RSI, albeit a lagging indicator, start to pick up. Now, if you look at the stock RSI quite closely here, there is in fact a death cross. Now, again, this is a lagging indicator, guys. So it could say that the bottom's already in, but when we do form this death cross, there is a potential to roll over here, which could then sort of bring the price back down. So ultimately, what we need to do is hold vertical accumulation support, which is hard to give a rough target because this trend line is, it's ascending trend line. I can't give you an exact sort of price, but somewhere around sort of $2.30 is what we need to hold to validate, getting that ascending triangle that I spoke about earlier and actually breaking through $2.70. If we lose $2.30, the minimum I'd be looking for is sort of $2, a retracement potentially back down to fill this wick. And what we're actually in is potentially a larger sort of ABC, where this could be an A. Now we're getting the relief into B, and then we get a C wave back down to this horizontal support before initially getting that sort of larger breakout heading into later during the year. Again, I don't really see that at the moment. I do think that there is a strong potential that we hold this ascending support line, but this horizontal support down here is also the last sort of lifeline for XRP to validate this wave count. Now, things get very interesting if we add the 10 and 55 EMA on here on the weekly. So this yellow line represents the 10 EMA and the 55 EMA is this red line. So XRP actually had if I remove the drawings here very quickly, this red line and where we've had these sort of wicks over the last sort of month is the first time XRP's actually came down to retest this moving average since October 2024. So this period here, we had October where we stooped below the 55 and then saw an imminent recovery and had this major breakout. So what tends to happen is when you get this large breakout, price does tend to consolidate, which is exactly what XRP's done for the last sort of 11 months. It's just been range bound in this sort of consolidation phase. And all it's done is given room and time for XRP to come back and retest one of these healthy EMAs, the 55-week EMA, which is one of our lifelines for continuation of this trend. Now, you will notice at this moment in time, there is some compression. XRP is compressed between the weekly 55 at $2.27 and also has the weekly 10 EMA on its head at $2.63. So we are getting some sort of squeeze into an apex here, and I do think a decision will be made in the coming weeks. So that's just something I wanted to show you guys as well. You know, compression tends to lead to expansion, should I say. And again, albeit considered, if we do fail to actually take out this 10 EMA and we do reject, you've got the 55 as a lifeline, and then ultimately you also have the bottom of this accumulation base, which again sits at roughly $1.90. So at the moment, there's no macro loss of structure. Everything looks great for XRP. It's frustrating because we've been in this massive consolidation phase. But if we zoom out and actually look at a prior accumulation phase for XRP here on the monthly time frame, we had something very similar in the past where we sort of consolidated in this range for a very long period of time. XRP was sort of caught between about 74 cents and about 40 cents. And we were just range bound in this period. It got very, very frustrating. And then all the way into this corner in November, again, fast forward to this year, you know, same sort of time period. On the week of 11th of November, this is where XRP really started to put in an impulsive move. And that was after going through a massive sort of consolidation phase, which lasted roughly from March 2023 all the way until November 2024. So it was about 595 days. Now, if we analyze this consolidation period from this high here, we've been in this consolidation range for about 343, so just under a year. However, as I mentioned, the weekly 55 is the key support here. And if we do lose that, 190 is the ultimate lifeline. Zooming out to the monthly time frame, this paints an even better picture, in my honest opinion, because XRP has also had a retest to this yellow line, which is the 10 EMA on the monthly. You can see we had a wick down here in April. We had a wick to it in June. We had a wick to it and below it, should I say, in October. And right now we're still currently holding above. So there's been no loss of structure on the 10 EMA, and the weekly 55 is holding strong for now. So there's good signals here. We're still waiting for that confirmation, and $2.70 is the region we need to see broken in order to get the continuation higher. Now do keep in mind, we also have this descending resistance, okay, which was very similar to XRP in the past on a previous correction. You can see it had this descending level of resistance. It hit its head on it many times. It eventually came back down, formed a higher low on these candle closes. So we had a low in April, and then we formed this higher low in June. And then we got the breakout of that resistance and placed a new all-time high. So right now, what this looks like is XRP either has a double bottom, or this is just one of the lows. XRP could push up, come back for a higher low leading into December, build up a similar structure to what we did in sort of March to July, build a nice double bottom here, macro, and then go for the break. That's a strong potential as well. I think we should keep our eyes on December. I do believe that November will be a bit choppy. Again, we've got the compression between the EMAs, and therefore, until we actually get back above $2.70, it remains on the cards to retrace back down to $2.20, roughly sort of $2. So in the short term, there could be some chop, but my overall outlook is a much bigger picture. Now, if we head to this post that I shared on the 6th of November, I shared this potential bull flag where we have this flagpole from the breakout in sort of late November heading into, I think it's December November, December of 2024 going into 2025. We had this flagpole, and then ever since then, we've been in this vertical accumulation. And you can see that this is the sort of flag structure. Again, it's frustrating, but we've had the flagpole. We're sort of consolidating in this range. We've got $2 as key support roughly down here, $1.90, $2. And if we even get that retest, I think this will lead up to a larger spring. And how we measure the breakout target of this structure is we mimic the flagpole and we drag it up to where we break resistance, and this gives us our target, and it sits roughly at about $26, $27, which, if you've been watching some of my content, is one of the targets that we've been covering. A few others include $8 at the 1272 and $13, I think it was, at the 1414. Now also, just another sort of example, this post here I shared is called the staircase to Valhalla, where consolidation leads to expansion. Because what we tend to see is after a massive consolidation phase, we get an expansion phase, and then we get a call off into consolidation again, and the likelihood of breaking out after building momentum for such a long period of time, i.e. being above key EMAs and holding a key level of support in the sort of $1.90 region, signals to me that we are looking for the next expansion. So this is why it's called climbing up the stairs, because you have consolidation, expand. First step, consolidation, expand. Second step. So that's another post I wanted to share with you guys. Now, ultimately, as I was saying before, this wave 5 had the potential to come back down here and retest this trend line, and that's exactly what we've done here. We had that level of support. We came back down to the vertical accumulation and the weekly 55 EMA. So there's 2 points of confluence here. We've got the weekly 55, and we've got that successful retest that I was anticipating back down to this vertical accumulation support. So that's ultimately my outlook at the moment. I think there could be some chop between these two EMAs for the next couple of weeks, but as long as XRP holds this vertical support line, vertical accumulation support, everything looks okay, and even if it does drop down, you've got this horizontal support, which is a stronger foundational base, should I say, or trend line than this sort of ascending. Ascending support isn't as strong as horizontal, which is why on multiple occasions since December of 2024, XRP has come down to this $1.90/$2 area and every time seen a historic bounce. So don't be disheartened if we do lose structure in the coming weeks, because we do have a key support lifeline below. Now, the last thing I wanted to share with you guys as well, other than the weekly 55, is XRP has actually had a wick back down towards its middle regression band of the Gaussian channel. In fact, we fell just shy of it, okay, which roughly sits at $2. So what's going to happen over time is this Gaussian is going to creep up, and this middle band is also going to creep up, and this lower band is going to creep up. We have 3 different types of bands on the Gaussian channel: the upper regression band, the middle regression band, and the lower regression band. When you're actually above these regression bands, it signals a strong uptrend. Excuse me. And you can see that within doing so, price is actually stuck again between the upper regression band and the middle regression band. So just like it is with the EMAs, okay, you got the 55-week EMA, but we also have the 10 EMA on our heads here, which is, if my mouse wants to let me do it, which you can see is coming into a pivotal moment, okay, because the 10 EMA sits right on the upper regression band, which you know, there's signs here saying that we could see some short-term pullback because of this signal. You know, the 10 EMA and the upper regression band being below both of them signals this is a strong resistance area. So in the short term, as I said, guys, it's fantastic that we've actually seen a wick down towards sort of $2. And if we do get a rollover and lose ascending vertical support, then look for also for the middle regression band of the Gaussian channel, because it ties up very close with these sort of $2, $1.90 range that we was just looking at. Okay, not too shy from them. So again, another signal of confluence. You've got $2 support below. We've got vertical accumulation support, which I've shown you many times. We had the descending triangle, which is actually broke down and met its target. And now we have work to do in order to get back to the all-time highs. And that's breaking through $2.70, breaking the 10 EMA, and also getting above the upper regression band of the Gaussian channel. So there's, you know, mixed sort of signals at the moment. There's several bullish indicators, the stock RSI, the weekly 55 retest, you know, they're healthy signs, and being above those and forming sort of oversold levels in the stock RSI historically points to a bounce, but doesn't necessarily always have to mark a bottom. You could stay in oversold for quite some time. So what we need to see ultimately is that $2.70 break of resistance, and things could really start getting impulsive. Now, before I go, just a short-term target. Again, I do have much larger macro targets for XRP, but once we actually take out $2.70, which I have strong faith it will, okay, especially after there's such a long period of accumulation. Once we actually get back above, you can see first off the 0.618, which sits very close to that $2.70 region. Okay, we need XRP to get back above $2.70. You can see here in on the week of 20th of October, we met it as resistance, pulled back, and we're going for that next push again. So $2.60 to $2.70 is a very strong level of resistance that needs to break. We have the 0.50 at $2.40, which is support, and we also have $2.17 as support, which is where the wick actually came back down to on the 13th of October. So, you know, there's a lot of support below is what I'm trying to say, but there's also resistance above that we do need to get through, and we're also getting compressed between those two EMAs. So it's a bit indecisive at the moment, let's put it that way. $2.70 again is main resistance to break, and $2/$1.90 is the main resistance to hold. Now, if XRP does eventually come up and break through this all-time high and essentially break out this descending level of resistance as well, then the path to me, especially once we clear $3.66, we'll be looking towards in the near short to midterm $4.60, $5.18, and the 1618 at $6. Again, I have much more larger macro targets after this accumulation breakout, but we have to take it one step at a time, and these would be the targets I'll be looking for once XRP does actually take out its all-time high. If it takes out its all-time high. Of course, there's no guarantees. I don't have a crystal ball, and nothing that I say is financial advice. But right now, this accumulation phase honestly leads me to believe that the momentum is building for the next leg up. And these in the next short to midterm could be some of those targets. So I hope you've enjoyed the content, guys. From Chart Nerd TA, take care. Peace out.